Have you ever imagined if Peter Pan, that mischievous boy who never grows old, was actually the villain of the whole story? Sounds crazy, right? But get ready, because in this video, I'm going to show you a surprising theory that will turn your view of Peter Pan upside down. Stay tuned to discover all the dark and intriguing details of this theory that you never expected. Let's go! In the story everyone knows, Peter Pan is a lovable boy who lives in Neverland and never grows old. He has friends like Wendy, John, and Michael, and loves to play with the Lost Boys. But there's a theory that suggests Peter Pan isn't as good as he seems. Instead of being a charming boy, he might be a darker, a dangerous character with quite questionable intentions. Neverland is a magical place where Peter and his friends live, but is it really as wonderful as it seems? According to this theory, Neverland is actually a prison for children. When Peter Pan takes a child there, he keeps them forever. Apparently, he does this because he is immortal and doesn't want to be alone. So he kidnaps children from the real world and takes them to his kingdom where they are trapped forever, with no chance of returning home. Remember the stories about the Lost Boys, right? They are boys who were in Neverland before the other characters arrived. The theory suggests that these Lost Boys are children who were brought there by Peter and never managed to return home. They are like Peter Pan's slaves, obeying his every order and living in a state of eternal childhood, without the chance to grow up and move on with their lives. A very dark version of the story says that Peter Pan is actually an angel of death. According to this theory, he has the task of taking children to heaven, which in reality would be Neverland. So in fact, none of the children there are alive, they are all already dead. That's why they never grow up, because Neverland is like a kind of eternal paradise, where they remain forever in childhood. Another version says that Peter Pan is not an angel of death, but someone with a very macabre taste. Instead of taking children to heaven, he takes them to see their suffering. The idea is that he does this because he misses his own mother and wants to understand the pain children feel from missing their mothers. So he observes and feeds on their anguish instead of simply guiding them to paradise. If you watch Peter Pan's movies and cartoons, you might notice some things that seem a bit strange. For example, when Peter Pan and the Lost Boys hunt the pirates, they have a certain coldness in dealing with their enemies. In the movie, when they are in battle, Peter and his friends don't show much empathy for the pirates. This can be seen as a way of showing that they don't have many emotions, which is a sign that maybe Peter Pan doesn't care much about others' feelings. As Peter Pan seems quite indifferent to the people around him. When Wendy and her brothers want to go home, he doesn't show much concern or sadness about the idea of losing them. For him, everything is a big adventure, and other people's feelings don't seem to matter much. Why doesn't Peter Pan want to grow up? According to the theory, it's not just because he wants to play and have fun. He doesn't want to grow up because growing up would mean facing responsibility and the loneliness of being alone with his own behavior. If he grows up, he would have to deal with his actions and their consequences, and that is something he clearly avoids. In the most well-known version of Peter Pan's story, Captain Hook is portrayed as the main villain. He is the evil pirate who wants to capture Peter Pan and the Lost Boys. But what if I told you there is a theory that Captain Hook can be seen in a completely different way? What if he's not the real villain, but rather a lost child who is fighting against Neverland's own system? Imagine that Captain Hook is actually one of the Lost Boys who grew up and became a pirate. In Neverland, the children brought by Peter Pan are forced to stay there and never grow up. However, James, Captain Hook is different. He is a boy who for some reason managed to grow up and rebelled against Peter Pan. His revolt is a reflection of his resistance to the system that imprisoned him. His crew are old because they are also children that the captain managed to save from Peter's evil clutches. Peter Pan is not just an eternal child, he is also the ruler of Neverland. What he considers to be a magical place is actually a control system to keep children under his rule. Captain Hook, therefore, is someone who opposes this system. He sees Neverland not as a paradise, but as a prison, where he and other Lost Boys are trapped in eternal childhood. Hook is not just an evil pirate, he is a rebel. His fight against Peter Pan is an attempt to break the control Peter exercises over the children. He wants to show Peter and the other Lost Boys that there is life beyond Neverland. For Hook, the battle against Peter Pan is a way to resist an unfair system that keeps him trapped. His anger and desire to capture Peter are in fact an expression of his desire for freedom. At the end of the story, Captain Hook meets his fate in the crocodile's jaws. This can be interpreted as a way for Peter Pan to eliminate an opponent who threatens his rule. Peter makes it seem like Hook is the villain, while in reality he is a victim of Peter Pan's system. As there are other versions that claim Peter Pan is indeed the villain of the story. One of them happens in the series Once Upon a Time. The Peter Pan in the series is much darker. Instead of being that boy who just wants to have fun and not grow up, he is a manipulated and cruel character. He created Neverland and rules it with an iron fist, using his magic to keep everything under control. Neverland is presented as a dangerous and tricky place. It's not that magical and peaceful place we imagine. Peter Pan uses this magical place for his own plans. He wants to find a way to conquer eternal life and is willing to do anything to get it. As Peter Pan's big plan is to use one of his enemies' hearts to perform a ritual and ensure that he not only lives forever in Neverland, but also in the real world. In other words, he wants to be immortal everywhere. Captain Hook here is not old or evil, he is the hero of the story. As the Lost Boys are captured by Peter's shadow and become loyal soldiers of his, there are boys who want to leave, but they can only leave Neverland when Peter Pan allows it. Wendy was kidnapped by Peter so that her two brothers could carry out missions outside Neverland for his own benefit. All kinds of evil were done by them who were not evil but were trying to protect Wendy. They are already adults since they stay outside Neverland, while Wendy remains a child for a long time. And in this version, Peter doesn't tolerate girls. Wendy was an exception because of his plan with her brothers. In the movie Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, we discovered that the animated characters are actually actors. And the boy who never grows up was also an actor. Peter Pan's transformation into a villain is directly related to the fact that he grew up and, therefore, could no longer be the eternal Peter Pan of childhood. As when he started to grow up and go through puberty, the studios fired Peter for no longer having the necessary youth for the role. This caused great revolt in the actor, who grew up, became huge, and turned into a criminal. He started making pirate movies and earning a lot of money from it. To make the parodies real, Peter Pan kidnapped several other actors, cloned some characteristics, and used them for his pirate movies. It was a very dark version of the boy who didn't want to grow up, but was forced to grow up, and, with that, revolted against the world that once adored him. I absolutely love the theory that Peter Pan is the villain. One of my favorite versions is from Once Upon a Time, as it delves deeper into the character and gives him that dark and mysterious edge I always imagined. In Chip and Dale, I found the puberty twist quite interesting, making the boy who never grows up actually start growing up, adding an unexpected layer to the story. But what truly fascinates me is imagining an animation where Peter Pan is indeed the villain, and Captain Hook is the hero trying to save the children. Peter would be so manipulative and cunning that no one would realize his true intentions. This concept brings an incredible twist to the classic tale, and I think it would be one of the best adaptations ever made. By far, it's the best theory among Disney classics, and I would love to see this version come to life. So what do you think of this darker version of Peter Pan? Is he really the villain of this story? Peter Pan may seem like a hero on the surface, but when we look closer, we discover there is much more going on under this mischievous boy's facade. Whether he is an angel of death, a child kidnapper, or simply an eternally selfish boy, this darker version of Peter Pan makes us question everything we thought we knew about him and his Neverland. If you are curious to know more about these versions, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with your friends. That way, you won't miss any details of the dark stories behind the fairy tales we all know. I'll leave a video on the screen for you to check out my content. See you in the next video.